Earlier on, we revisited a number of reports and interactions from the World Economic Forum, courtesy of the hard-working Arise News crew. A whole lot happened in the course of 1 week, and for a review of Nigeria's participation, we are now being joined by Dr. Muda Yusuf, the Chief Executive Officer of Center for the Promotion of Private Enterprise and a former Director General of Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Good morning, Dr. Yusuf, and welcome to the morning show.
Yeah, good morning, Adesua, and good morning, Mr. Steve.
Good morning, sir.
Yeah, so let's just start off on a very general note. Nigeria House at Davos. Do you believe it was a success? And do you believe it's a useful or efficient use of funds for Nigeria to rent a place at the promenade for a week? It's very expensive in Davos. It's where the world's richest and most successful go to mingle. Do you believe that this is a good and positive use of money? And do you think it was a success in general?
Well, I think it has been a very valuable summit, forum for Nigeria, because if you look at the global gatherings of political leadership, multilateral organizations, and CEOs of private companies, WEF, which is World Economic Forum, is about the biggest. It's about the most significant, and it's one that has the highest profile. So as a country, if you really want to tell your own story, if you really want to engage investors, you want to engage multilateral organizations, there is no single more important forum than the World Economic Forum. We had in attendance about 64 heads of state and government. We had over 800 top CEOs, not SMEs, top CEOs. We had the head of all the multilateral institutions that you can think of. All of them were present physically and at the highest level. And we had over 130 countries represented. So it's a very great platform from which you can network and also build reputation. Because no matter what you say, you have suffered significant reputational damage over the last 1 year or so because of all this insecurity, the tweets from Trump, and all manner of negative narratives are out there. So when you are there on ground to tell your own story, it makes a whole lot of difference. You are there to engage on the reforms that have been undertaken, which was done. We are there to present investment opportunities, to engage multilateral organizations, to engage top CEOs. So for me, I think it has been a very, very valuable participation. What is important is the follow-through. Because in terms of immediate value, of course, you got immediate value by networking, by the visibility, by even the impact on our reputation. We had the Nigeria House in Davos for the first time, and that provided, a very good focus, on Nigeria, to discuss Nigerian issues, to engage issues relating to Nigeria in the Nigerian House, Although Nigerian House, of course, they call it a house, but it's a pavilion, which is dedicated to Nigeria, just as Saudi Arabia has, Belgium has, USA also has. So for me, I think it's something that has been worth it. It's worth the effort, given the opportunity that it offers for our country.
All right, Dr. Yusuf, thanks for setting the tone for the conversation. And I would like you to properly dimension the postmortem of the 2026 WEF, given the fact that, like you said, it was very well attended and Nigeria was well represented. I recall that when our own Rolake Akekugbe Filani, who was on WEF with a few of our other correspondents, asked Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala which opportunities did she think were there for Nigeria. And, Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala was like, The opportunities are there if we could identify and if we could work on what makes meaning to us. Part of our reaction was also to discuss clarify between disruptions that we have witnessed within global trade and destruction that many people thought that the intervention from America and Donald Trump constituted to world trade. And then lastly, she said that we must add value to our products if we want the world to truly trade with us. And so for me, the question will be, what would you consider to be your standout achievement, in quote, for Nigeria and for Africa at WEF this year? And then dimensioning what Dr. Okonjo-Iweala said about adding value to our products if we want the world to trade with us. What do you think is lacking, and in which key areas do you think that our products and our trading should focus on going forward?
Well, if you look at, there was one major highlight of WEF was the launching of the investment playbook that was launched at Davos. And the whole essence was to put on the table specific investment opportunities and projects. Because when we have this kind of platform and this kind of engagement, it's not enough to just say that people should come and invest. You must be able to put on the table specific investment opportunities and projects, which is what happened at this last Davos. There's a playbook that's on solid minerals, which gave all the opportunities and all of that. There was another one on digital economy, and digital and creative economy. There was another one on climate finance and climate-related industrialization. There's another one on agriculture and food systems. These are sectors in which we have some fairly good comparative advantage. Because the thing about trade is that you benefit more if you are operating from a point of competitive and comparative advantage. And we are seeing that in these sectors, we have quite some reasonable level of comparative advantage. So there's a lot of opportunities there, which were presented specifically, to the investment community. Just as I said, we have over 800 top CEOs that were there. We had all the multilateral organizations that were there. So that was something that was very good. With respect to the issue of value addition, the point made by Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, very valid point, because the best way to get value from trade and from your export is to add value so that you can get better returns on the export. But the fundamental issue with respect to value addition is not just about talking about it. It's about creating the structural environment that will make it very competitive for you to be able to add value. Because you don't add value just for the sake of adding value. You add value in a way that will be competitive. Because of the structural issues that we are currently contending with, value addition is coming at a very high cost. And it's creating a competitiveness challenge. That is why when you look at the trade figures, our manufactured export is almost nothing. That's why most of our exports are still primary products. So we need to add value, but we need to fix the structural environment. Of course, we have made significant progress around the macroeconomic environment that is good for trade, but we need to fix the structural issues. That is only when we can, sustainably be talking about value addition in a way that is sustainable, in a way that will make us competitive. So for me, I think that is what the principle is okay, but we need to address some, structural fundamentals.
Thank you, sir. Now, you've spoken about structural fundamentals and moving away from talking to actually making these things happen. What do you believe that the government needs to do, and also private individuals, private companies need to do to move us from the talking to the structural and effective work?
Well, it's about investment. Because one of the biggest challenges we have in the Nigerian economy today is infrastructure deficit. So it's about bridging that deficit. And bridging that deficit requires capital. It requires investment, both from the government and from the private sector. So we need to structure our environment in such a way that we'll be able to attract private investment into some key infrastructure areas where those investments are bankable. And for those ones that are not bankable, we can work out some kind of partnership with government, or the government can also exclusively take on some of those heavy liftings in terms of infrastructure provision. Because with that infrastructure, talking about value addition, we can't go far. So it's about investment from the public sector, it's about investment from the private sector, because one thing we have, and one thing we are blessed with in Nigeria, is that we have a very sound crop of entrepreneurs that can make things happen. What they just want is for us to create the enabling environment for them. So if the government is able to do all of that, of course, the private sector will bring capital to the table, both even from domestic and foreign. Then the government too should have to take up some responsibility and do some heavy lifting in areas where it is not easy to bring in private capital. So perhaps I think that is what we need to do, so that we have better investment in our power sector, for instance, better investment in our rail system, better investment in our ports, better investment in our road networks and waterways. So these are the critical, fundamental things that we need to do so that we can be more competitive, because international trade is about competitiveness at the end of the day. You have to be competitive in price, you have to be competitive in quality. So those are the fundamentals we should be addressing.
All right, Dr. Yusuf, you spoke about the significance of the Nigerian house in Davos, even though it's a temporary, rented space, which is okay. But then, doesn't that speak to the fragmentation of how Africa as a whole was represented at Davos? South Africa had its own pavilion. We had our own. Ghana had his own Ghana Reset, talk, on its own separately, even though, yes, former President Olusegun Obasanjo was there, former Vice President Yemi Osinbajo was also there. But then what we see is that it looked like every top African country was trying to be seen and appreciated. And therefore, a coordinated sort of narrative from Africa, from the point of view of economy and trade, seem to be missing. Do you think that was the best approach, unlike the European Union that had a solid front and were able to, if you like, stand up to Trump in many ways? But then Africa appeared fragmented and nobody was speaking, frankly speaking, as a unit for the continent.
Well, it depends on how we look at it. If you are talking about attracting investment, as a country, we cannot go there and be asking for people to come and invest in Africa. We must be asking them to come and invest in a particular location. We must be putting on the table specific investment proposition and opportunities. And if we are coming from that perspective, it can only be country specific. Because when we go there, these things cost us a lot of money. And we have to put ourselves first in terms of presenting the opportunities that are available in Nigeria, just as other countries will present their own opportunities from an investment point of view. But when we are talking about issues of global trade, issues that are continent-wide, then of course we will be engaging at that level. The chief executive of AFCFTA was there. And I'm sure all this engagement at that forum will be engagement at the continental level, presenting a continental perspective. But when it comes to investment, I think what we need to do, is what we have done. You have to attract investment to your own country. There in Davos, we have Belgium. Belgium also has a Belgium house. Saudi Arabia has a Saudi house. USA has its own house, and quite a number of countries like that. So I don't think it's so much an issue of fragmentation from that perspective. I think it's a matter of going there to achieve your own objective, which is country-specific. When it comes to issues that are continental in nature, of course, there are other platforms, and there are people there to engage at the continental level.
All right, can I make a quick follow-up there, Dr. Yusuf, given the specificity that you spoke about? When we go there, as we did, who do you think we identify with? Do people, or does the world see us as a friend to a specific bloc? Is it the Americans? Is it the France, where the president obviously has an interest? Is it the Russians, until their special interest in the Sahel that we, because of other economic blocs that we were trying to explore, we were getting friendly with Russia? Is it China? And so when we go on a global platform like that, who does the world see us with as a Nigerian economic bloc? Who's our friend? Who's our ally? Who's our major trade partner when it comes to that, sort of a platform?
You see, the platform is basically economic. And we are talking here largely about economic diplomacy. So as much as possible, this is a process that is highly transactional. It's about your own interest. If you can get value, because the way we have not fully aligned with any particular bloc. We are operating in somewhat kind of flexible diplomacy, at the heart of which is Nigerian interest. I mean, we have a lot of interest in relationship with China, with US, with Russia. I think that is the model that we have been adopting, and I don't think we should have any apologies for that. The second leg of it is that when we talk about investment, this ideological conversation doesn't arise so much. Because just as I told you, we had an investment playbook. It is open to investors. We have over 800 CEOs of different companies. When the CEOs are engaging with you, they are not engaging from an ideological point of view. They are engaging from a point of view of returns on investment. They are looking at your country risk. They are looking at the perception. They are looking at what is in it for them as businesses. So there are conversations at investment and business level, which is completely disconnected from ideological issues. There are also conversations around maybe some bilateral and diplomatic issues, which may be somewhat, ideological. But the bigger issue, as far as WEF is concerned, is about business, it's about investment, it's about the economy. The diplomatic or ideological content of it is very minimal in my own view.
Because it seems that this year's WEF was taken over by a lot of diplomatic conversations, particularly on the backdrop of Trump and Greenland. But very quickly, I want to ask which country you believe Nigeria will be positioning itself to get these investments from. We've seen, just very briefly, because we've seen what Egypt is doing, what Canada is doing. What countries would you expect Nigeria to be seeking investment from?
Well, the investment environment or the opportunities are open to all countries. But from what you have seen, we are expecting a lot more in terms of investment from Asia, for instance. China is a leading one. The Middle East is another very big one. Then Europe, yes. We are also expecting a lot from Europe and America. But because of the level of risk appetite, the Asians have a higher level of risk appetite when it comes to investment. And no matter what you say, the risk of investment in Africa generally is very high. And because the average European investor, American investor, have a lower appetite for risk, so we don't see much of them showing interest. That is why we see more of Chinese, Indians, and the rest of them from Asia. investing a lot more in Africa. But what is important here is that, again, it depends on the sector. We are talking about, ICT, fintech, and the rest of them, creative economy. Of course, a lot of opportunity can come from from Europe and the United States. We are talking about infrastructure and the rest. We are expecting some, investment from the UAE, from the Middle East, in oil and gas and the rest of that. So this is depend first on the level of risk appetite, which vary from country to country, from continent to continent. It also depends on the kind of sector that we are looking at. So these are the variables that determines where the opportunities are likely to come from. But generally, investing in Africa is a bit risky. And again, it depends on the level of risk appetite across the world.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Muda Yusuf, for joining us this morning on The Morning Show. Your insights were very enlightening, as always.